Welcome back to the Chattable podcast, where enrich vocabulary and speak English with pride. Did you know that every time a tech billionaire aggressively demands that a struggling startup pay its debts, they are unknowingly quoting a 16th century Latin card game?
I mean, it sounds like a bizarre collision of two completely different worlds, right? But that is the hidden reality of the English language.
Yeah, it really is.
So much of the vocabulary we use today, especially those phrases that carry a very specific, heavy feeling, they actually originated in surprisingly ordinary or even gritty situations hundreds of years ago.
Right, and understanding that origin story is honestly the absolute best way to make vocabulary stick. I mean, if you just memorize a list of definitions, the words basically fade from your memory the second you close the book.
Exactly. They just disappear.
But if you understand the history and the visual imagery behind a phrase, you inherently understand its vibe. You stop guessing which word to use, and you start speaking with genuine confidence. So in this episode, we are looking at two highly vivid English phrases.
Oh, these are great ones, too.
Yeah, one deals with the uncomfortable reality of owed money, and the other describes a severe, involuntary physical reaction.
And both of these phrases are powerful because they do not just convey information, they convey a very specific attitude. Using them correctly, instantly, signals to native speakers that you understand the subtle emotional currents of the language.
Definitely. So let's picture a scenario that almost everyone has experienced. You are hanging out with a group of friends on a Friday night, and everyone decides to order a massive pizza.
Sounds good so far.
Right. The delivery driver arrives at the door, the smell of garlic and cheese is filling the room, and suddenly there is that one friend who pats their pockets and miraculously forgets their wallet.
Oh, there is always one.
Always. And they swear they will pay you back tomorrow. But tomorrow comes and goes, days turn into a week. You do not want to destroy the friendship, but, well, you also want your money.
Of course you do.
When you finally confront them, you are not going to send a formal invoice. You tell them they need to pony up.
Pony up. It is the perfect phrase for that exact level of social tension. When you tell someone to pony up, you are demanding that they pay a debt they owe, but you are doing it in a casual way.
Right.
And the crucial underlying meaning here is reluctance. The person who owes the money does not really want to part with their cash. I mean, they have been dragging their feet.
I imagine this isn't just for, $20 between friends, though. If a startup defaults on a major business loan, the bank is going to tell them to pony up too, right?
Oh, absolutely. The reluctance is the key ingredient, whether it is a slice of pizza or $1 million line of credit. The phrase carries a slight edge. It is a bit pushy.
So you're basically cutting through the excuses.
Exactly. You're saying, look, the time for waiting is over. Produce the money. And this brings us right back to that 16th century card game you mentioned earlier.
Yes, because I am still trying to figure out how a card game from the 1500s connects to the word pony. It completely ruins my mental image of a guy riding a miniature horse to deliver a heavy bag of gold coins to a creditor.
That is a great image, but no.
Is it just a 500-year-old game of telephone?
Pretty much. There are no miniature horses involved, unfortunately. To understand how we got the word pony in this context, you have to look at the taverns and gambling tables of 16th century Europe.
Okay, set the scene for me.
Well, back then, Latin wasn't just for scholars and religious texts. Pieces of it bled into everyday slang, especially in settings where people from different regions might gather to drink and gamble. And during these card games, players used the Latin phrase ponere nihil.
Wait, so if my basic knowledge of Latin holds up, nihil means nothing, right?
You nailed it. And pone means to put or to place. So the phrase literally translated to place nothing or pay nothing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was a specific betting term used during the flow of the game. Now imagine tired, perhaps slightly intoxicated card players saying this phrase over and over in crowded, noisy taverns.
I can see where this is going.
Right. As language naturally does, the pronunciation began to get lazy. It shifted and eroded. The Latin ponere slowly morphed into the English slang word pony.
That makes so much sense. It is like how we mash words together today when we speak quickly. So the gamblers took a formal Latin verb meaning to place and just turned it into tavern slang.
Exactly. And by the time we reached the 1800s, the phrase had evolved into its modern form. People were using this English adaptation to describe literally putting or placing your money on the table to settle a bet or a debt.
Wow.
The connection to the physical action of putting money down remained, even though the original Latin word had been completely disguised by the English pronunciation.
So if two people are watching a horse race, and let's say Liam bets Sarah $50 on the outcome, Liam might be absolutely furious when his horse loses.
Right.
But a bet is a bet.
Right.
He's incredibly reluctant, but he has to pony up that $50.
He cannot escape it. The phrase perfectly captures his annoyance and his obligation. But, it is also important to recognize the boundaries of this phrase because that casual, slightly aggressive edge makes it dangerous if you use it in the wrong context.
Yeah, because if I am in a boardroom trying to close a deal with a brand new corporate client, telling their CEO to pony up the initial investment would probably end the meeting immediately, right?
Instantly.
It feels way too casual, almost like I am treating a multinational executive like a guy who owes me for a beer.
It would be perceived as highly unprofessional and, frankly, quite rude. You are stripping away all the polite, professional vocabulary that usually cushions business deals.
Right, you'd want to use something else.
In a formal setting, you would use phrases like settle the outstanding balance or transfer the required funds. You only use pony up when the relationship allows for casual slang or, well, when the situation has become so adversarial that you no longer care about being polite.
Got it. And that boundary also applies to the type of money being exchanged, doesn't it? I mean, I would never ask someone to pony up a donation for a local charity bake sale.
Exactly. Or for a wedding gift. It is strictly reserved for debts and obligations. You cannot demand a voluntary contribution.
That would just sound terrible.
It really would. If you ask someone to pony up for a birthday present, you are implying that they owe you the gift, which completely ruins the sentiment. The money must be owed and the payment must be required.
Okay, so let's shift gears and look at the emotional toll of owing that money. If you are the founder of that struggling startup we talked about, and the bank aggressively demands that you pony up a massive amount of cash that you simply do not have, the sheer panic you feel isn't just in your head.
No, not at all.
It is physical. You feel a severe, twisting anxiety right in your gut. And that physical distress bridges us perfectly into the second phrase for this episode.
Yes, that intense dread brings us directly to the phrase stomach churning. It is a highly evocative description of an involuntary bodily reaction.
I feel like stomach churning sounds exactly like what it is. You can almost feel the physical discomfort and the heavy sloshing movement just in the sound of the word churning.
Absolutely. We use this phrase to describe an experience or a piece of information that is so deeply shocking, disgusting, or morally upsetting that it bypasses your brain and makes your body feel physically sick.
It's just utter disgust.
The entire atmosphere of this phrase is one of profound revulsion.
Think about how people used to make butter on a farm. They didn't just gently stir a bowl of cream, they used a churn, and the process required them to violently plunge a heavy wooden stick up and down inside the container, just smashing and shaking the liquid until it solidified.
It was exhausting, forceful labor.
Exactly.
And that agricultural imagery is exactly why the phrase is so effective. When you witness something truly horrific, your body experiences a surge of adrenaline and stress hormones. Your digestive system physically reacts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the muscles in your abdomen literally contract, twist, and mimic that violent, repetitive slamming motion of a butter churn. It is an evolutionary response to purge something toxic, but we experience it even when the toxin is purely visual or emotional.
So the most direct application of this is basic physical disgust. Like a highly relatable example is reaching into the back of your refrigerator, finding a carton of milk that expired 3 weeks ago and opening it.
Oh, please no.
Right, that immediate, overwhelming wall of sour, rotten stench hits you. You do not just think, oh, that smells bad. Your body actually recoils. The smell of that rotten milk is absolutely stomach churning.
That is the phrase functioning on its most literal physical level. The sensory input is so foul that your body physically rebels against it. But the phrase takes on an even heavier, more powerful meaning when we apply it to moral disgust.
Right, like human behavior.
Exactly. We use it to describe human behavior or events that are so shocking or deeply cruel that they trigger the same physical reaction as that rotten milk.
This happens frequently with investigative journalism or true crime. Like a great example is the public reaction to the documentary film Leaving Neverland.
Yes. That was the documentary concerning the pop superstar Michael Jackson. It featured highly intimate, detailed descriptions from two individuals recounting their experiences with him when they were children.
And regardless of the various public debates surrounding the film or the legal arguments, the reaction of the viewers is what we are focusing on here. The actual content being described on screen was incredibly heavy.
It was. Many film critics and ordinary viewers alike described experiencing a genuinely stomach-churning reaction while listening to those interviews. The material was so deeply upsetting and violated such fundamental human taboos that it caused a visceral physical sickness in the audience.
It was not a movie you could watch passively.
No, it goes far beyond the simple preference. You don't just dislike the documentary, your body rejects the information. And understanding that intensity seems critical to avoiding mistakes when speaking English.
Yeah, because if I were to complain about my dinner by saying, I had to eat steamed broccoli tonight and it was stomach churning, people would look at me like I had lost my mind.
They would assume you were incredibly melodramatic. This is a common trap when learning a language, finding a powerful phrase and overusing it for minor inconveniences.
That makes sense.
If you simply do not like the taste of broccoli, it is not stomach churning, it is just unappetizing. If you casually use a phrase designed for rotting food and severe moral atrocities to describe a slightly overcooked vegetable, you lose all credibility. You sound like you are crying wolf with your vocabulary.
It dilutes the power of the words. You have to keep this phrase locked away until you encounter something truly revolting or profoundly disturbing.
Precision is the hallmark of a confident speaker. Knowing the definition of a word is only half the battle. The other half is understanding the weight of the word. You have to read the room and calibrate your vocabulary to match the severity of the situation.
That is such good advice. So let's bring these two concepts together. On one hand, we have pony up, a phrase born from the casual, noisy gambling tables of the 16th century, carrying an aggressive edge to demand payment from a reluctant debtor. On the other hand, we have stomach churning, a phrase rooted in the violent physical labor of agricultural butter making, perfectly describing the involuntary bodily sickness we feel when confronted with profound disgust.
The contrast between the two is a great lesson in context. Pony up is social and transactional. It is about human friction.
Yes, exactly.
Stomach churning is internal and biological. It is about our physical limits. When you understand these layers, you stop worrying about making awkward mistakes. You know instinctively that pony up stays out of the formal boardroom and stomach churning stays away from minor complaints about your dinner.
There is a broader implication here that I find completely fascinating, though. It changes how you look at the language as a whole.
It really does. Think about how many everyday English phrases are actually, linguistic ghosts hiding in plain sight. We walk around using these terms without a second thought.
Linguistic ghosts. That is a brilliant way to phrase it.
Think about that tech billionaire we mentioned at the start of the episode. He is sitting in a sleek, glass-walled office in Silicon Valley, utilizing the latest technology. And when he demands his money, he is unknowingly channeling the spirit of an ancient Roman card player.
That is wild.
The Latin phrase survived centuries of mispronunciation, crossed oceans, and embedded itself into modern corporate culture. It makes you wonder what other ancient concepts or echoes of the distant past you might be speaking every single day without even realizing it.
We are constantly speaking history. It is an amazing thought to leave on. Well, thank you to everyone for joining us for this episode. Keep paying close attention to the history hiding behind your vocabulary. And most importantly, keep practicing and speaking English with pride.